All right, we are live again. I mean, sorry, y'all. I mean, you know how this goes. This good old technology, right? So feel free to share on your platforms. Feel free to share um, on your page. So yes, yes, yes. I think I should have shortened that prayer. I didn't tell y'all that I can go in when I have to pray,
You,
huh?
you felt your help. I'm just here to support the woman. Hey, right? Hey, Jesus.
Oh my gosh. Just doing what I could do. So yes. So we'll give it just a minute or two. So as you come in, feel free to say hello. Let me pull up my questions here on tonight.
Of course.
Yes, yes, yes. So how are you fellas doing tonight?
I'm good. Doing
Good.
well.
I'm actually struggling. I mean, Broderick is in a good place, but overall, I'm really struggling. Just seeing another lynching, um,
Mhm,
hitting social media, uh,
mhm,
in the way that it did, and the timing that it did on the
mhm.
heels of Brother Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah,
Mm.
It's a lot. It's too much and not enough all at the
yeah,
same time. Uh,
yeah,
and it's hard not being pissed, especially
yeah,
people who don't look like you want to show up to the table as advocates.
yeah.
We're trying to figure out, are you friend? Are you foe? What you're doing? Who said who? In whose name did you come?
Right, right.
For me tonight, I'm really struggling. So listen, if I say something flippant,
Yeah,
it wasn't B Speaks that said it, and it wasn't Ramal that said it. It
yeah,
was Brother Broderick
yeah,
on all the smoke. Thanks.
yeah. Okay. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for your transparency in that. Today has been a hard day. Today's been a hard day, yet again. But I think that this conversation is going to be on time because it affects our Black men.
Absolutely.
It affects,
Yeah.
just period and point blank, and it affects and consequently it affects all of us. You know what I'm saying? Um, so, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to share the video with your uncles, your brothers, your cousins, your daddy, your nephews, your son, your husband, your boyfriend, boo thing, quarantine boo. Listen, share this with the men in your life. Ladies, it's also good for us to tune in as well. Again, I'm B Speaks, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, licensed here in Georgia, New York, and temporarily in New Jersey to assist with the COVID-19 crisis. And I wanted to open a platform where two brothers that I know who are advocates in the field of mental health can come and speak to this subject and also be able to share, some of their personal experiences. We have stigmatized mental health or mental illness in the African American community for so long. We've stigmatized it, especially when it comes to our men. You know, they're feeling the stigma as well. And so the whole purpose of this conversation is to break the stigma. And so without further ado, Ramal, could you give a brief introduction of who you are, and followed by Broderick, and then hey, we're just going to start chopping away at these questions. And if you have questions, hello, thank you for tuning in. If you have questions, please put them in the comments so that we can make sure that they get to them. So Ramal.
Hey, thanks again for doing this. Really appreciate it. Just to keep it brief, my name is Ramal Toon. I'm an author. I've written a few books that we'll probably talk about and share a little later. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also vice president for strategic partnerships at TMS Global. And so I do a lot of public speaking. I also founded a nonprofit 10 years ago called Clear Story. And
Hmm.
we do funding around higher education for low income students. We also sponsor workshops around mental health.
Hmm.
Uh, and we also provide assistance, financial assistance for families and individuals who
Hmm.
want to receive counseling but otherwise couldn't afford it for various
Stuff.
circumstances. So we help to subsidize that a little bit. So,
Good stuff. We might have to talk online offline a little bit about that because yeah, I can. Yeah, that's some good stuff,
Yeah.
brother Broderick.
sure.
Yeah. So I am Broderick McBride. I am the Director of Counseling Services and Pastoral Care at a minority, predominantly minority church in the heart of Southwest Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose behind my job is to basically be the bridge or the connection between spirituality and also the practicality that is found in mental health. So
Hmm.
oftentimes we have parishioners that may be experiencing something that we may want to
Hmm.
Did
humanize,
y'all freeze on me?
say that it's something that's
You good?
other, and it's absolutely not. They actually need assistance.
Hmm.
So it's my job to connect them to the
Hmm.
professionals that can help them become a bit better, but
Hmm.
also give that spiritual cushion as well
Hmm.
as a journey along the way. So I work from the practice of both faith, spirituality, and mental health. They work hand in hand. They don't
Yes.
against each other. So that's essentially what I do. And I am the second half of a phenomenal podcast called The Let Out. You can find us on Spotify, Google Play, Apple, all of the good stuff. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can actually find us there. And the premise behind our podcast is that we are what you would call two church leaders who come together to talk trash, but to also engage in intellectual conversation from
Yes.
a place of practicality again, but also spirituality as well. So
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us as well. I think Ramal was asking us if he was freezing, but Ramal, are
Yeah,
you okay?
yeah, I'm good. I solved the
Okay.
problem.
Okay. I think you're freezing up a little bit here on the screen. We can hear you though.
Hmm. Okay, well, let's hope I hope my internet should be fine. So looks like I'm good.
We're just gonna keep rolling. And actually, I'm gonna throw the first
Yeah, let's
question
do
out.
that.
I'm gonna throw the first question out and let you guys answer. And while you're answering, Ramal, there you go, you're back. I have a copy of your book here, and so while y'all are answering questions, I'm gonna run over to my bookshelf and get it so that I can show people what it looks like, so that they can find it. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So the first question is, when it comes to the subject of mental health as it is discussed, well, first of all, is it discussed enough in the African community, in the African American community, and specifically, is it discussed enough, you think, when it comes to men, and why or why not? So, number one, do we talk about it enough when it in the African American male community? And number two, why or why not? So I'm gonna kind of go out for a
Mm,
minute and leave you two up to answer those questions, and I'm gonna pop back in. So go for
yeah.
it.
Well, Broderick, I think for me, it's contextualized. I caution against the generalization of do we as an entire Black community speak on any given thing. It depends on context. I have friends where we talk very openly about mental and emotional health, and a number of my friends are in therapy. Oddly enough, most of my male friends who are in therapy are actually older than me.
wow.
And then in professional settings, I found that people I have looked to as leaders in the workforce, be it presidents of organizations, CEOs, or what have you, and they don't talk about it, but if you raise the question, I've learned that most successful healthy leaders not only
Absolutely.
have a coach, they have a therapist.
Yes, sir.
But then I think as a broad in some contexts in community and in my family, no, mental health is not discussed. It never was discussed. It was deemed weak. You were deemed soft. In some ways, it was, that whole mind, and still is that mindset of we don't talk about our business, when the reality of that business we don't talk about is the reason we have problems in the first place, because no
Absolutely.
one wants to address the trauma within the family, as if the silence is going to heal the wounds, and it only makes them worse. And then we end up passing things down to future generations. I have had friends who, in the beginning of having these conversations, they were opposed to it. Um, but I think I found that the more I talk about it, the more brothers I know are more apt to give it a try. Doing the workshops that I do helps. It's good when other men see another brother, and my therapist also will do them with me too. And so when they see the two of us having conversations, they hear me sharing my story of healing, hear him as a professional talk about it. It removes that barrier and those assumptions that people have about mental health. And then, of course, people think that they've had this mindset that if you're seeing a therapist, something must be wrong with you,
Right.
which is not the case. The reality is, it's for me, there have been times when something was wrong, and there have been a lot of times when I just wanted to make sure nothing goes wrong, and I want to have the skills and the tools to manage my thoughts and my feelings in a given
Yeah.
context before something happens.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that over time, and I had to overcome my own assumptions about therapy, because I did think it was soft, and I did have that typical mentality of, you got to be strong enough to carry it all. And but then came to the realization, like, that strength of just carrying it all wasn't serving me well. Like,
Mhm.
how has carrying things in silence without telling anyone or expressing how I'm really feeling really served me well in life? And when I did an honest assessment, it was actually a useless way of thinking, and that if I wanted to become my best self, I had to do some real work and give voice to the things that were the problems in my life. Some of those things were problems other people were responsible for, and some of them were my responsibility. But I had to name it and own it in order to heal it.
Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Sorry, I disappeared for a minute. This is Ramal's book. Can y'all see? Love is an inside job. So yes, we'll give all the
Keep going.
the ways that you can purchase um as we're nearing the end of the broadcast. So
Yeah.
yes.
To jump in and to answer the question as well, I too and will Ramal in that I don't believe in the generalizations of statements.
Mhm.
Because truth be told, blackness and especially black men were not monolithic. Like we come in many different shades, many different characters, many different positions and personas. So just to generalize or to place a general statement, it for sure would cause a deficit. It would cause us to miss out on some brothers.
Mhm.
I have lived in a duality of sorts. Therapy was not talked about at all um,
Mhm.
growing up, and I come from
Mhm.
a very educated family. Especially on my mom's side, my maternal family. Most of them are all women. They all went to HBCUs. They all have a background in medicine, ironically, medicine and education. But when it
Mhm.
came down to mental health, there really wasn't anything that was directly talked about until one of my aunts became a therapist, maybe like around 2006, 2007. By that
Mhm.
time, I was 18, 19 years old. So
Mhm.
a lot of foundational paradigms have already been established for me. When it came down to mental health and whenever conversations would be had in relation to somebody seeing a therapist, a
Mhm.
psychologist, it was, oh, that N word is crazy, right?
Right.
You know, they around there going to them white people, telling them white folks all their business because, again, seeing a person of color operating as a mental health worker back in the Delta of Arkansas and Tennessee, it was like abnormal to see
Yeah.
actually operating in their role. So for me, the acceptance of mental health did not come about until I found myself in the city of Atlanta, going to school in the AUC, being amongst those that would be deemed the talented tenth within the Black community. Um,
Mhm.
and there was talks around therapists and how on campus we had therapists that were available to help us navigate through stuff. So
Yeah.
when I became a psychology major, it was like, oh. this is where the party at, right? Um, a little bit older. Once I got a little bit older, and mind you, I'm coming of age and coming into manhood in the time
Mhm.
of the massacre of Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Philando Castile,
Yeah.
all of those men and women that lost their life, Sandra Bland, just
Mhm.
watching this over and over and over and over happening, and social justice is a part of my paradigm. I'm in the mix of justice fatigue, along with
Yeah.
I want to march, but I gotta go to class. Along with wait a minute, what y'all taught me about this white Jesus, that ain't it, and it was just a whole lot that was shifting
Yeah.
at one time.
Yeah.
So what kept me sober and what does keep me sober is being able to find or go to a mental health worker to kind of talk
Yeah.
through things. Um,
Yeah.
but within my current community now, um, mental health is the name of the game amongst all of
Yeah.
the others.
Yeah.
Whether if it's us creating healing circles or
Mhm.
healing communities, for us to
Mhm.
just come together and just to simply be transparent, raw,
Yeah.
uncut, without a filter, whether we need to talk about wife, children, mama, whomever.
Yeah.
And not everybody is not everybody prescribed to a heteronormative persona as well.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all in this thing together. So to be
Yeah.
able to sit down at the table with brothers and create safe space for them
Yeah.
to navigate through the stuff that they're going through. But now,
Yeah.
from my employment, being able
Yeah.
to lead them to resources as well as myself to help us to further unpack and as Ramal said, to give us tools
Yeah.
to kind of navigate through things. Yeah, now this will be the name of the game. If I'm
Yeah.
fortunate,
Yeah, I
some,
think,
you know, yeah.
Yeah.
society, we find there's more conversation. It's like, celebrities have made the conversation of therapy cool,
Yeah,
right?
Mm.
Um,
Let's talk
but
about it.
but
Y'all
it
might have to
doesn't
add something to
mean,
that.
people have monetized the conversation, but
Yes.
the real work is actually going to see a therapist, and that process, can be difficult.
mhm,
It was difficult for me. I had to one admit that I probably should go talk to somebody with all the
Yes.
trouble I'm getting in,
Yeah.
and I'm unable to fix myself. But then there, and some of the historical aspects of being
Mm-hmm.
Black in America
sir.
and the desire to see a mental health professional when hell, this country's been responsible for driving half of us to the situations we're in right now. So, how do we
I just threw a
trust?
church cloth.
Yeah, how do we trust a system that's never intended to have us in mind, or our mental health,
Right.
let alone physical health too? So,
Right.
we have a historical lens that tells us
Yeah.
to operate out of caution, but then we also have the myths and assumptions about therapy, that are not rooted in a whole lot of truth beyond, the historical facts. But then there are these myths and assumptions about what it means to see a therapist.
Yeah.
And I think that you really have to start raising the question, is this belief serving me well and becoming my best self? Like, what's
Yeah.
the value of believing that not seeing someone is going to help me? Like,
Yeah.
if I don't see anyone, am I assuming it's going to get better all on its own? So, what's
Yeah.
the value in that belief? If I'm really trying to
Yeah.
become my best self, what's the value in believing that I'm supposed to be strong enough and man enough to just carry it? Who do
Yeah.
I know in my own family who has operated that way that has actually served them well in becoming their best self?
That's
And when I
so
look
good.
at the people who raised me and the things that they were, trying to be strong and carry and be man enough to
Mm.
carry, it actually never served them well in becoming their best selves and achieving their highest potential. So, what value is it to me to follow that same system if it didn't work for them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I have nothing to lose by trying something better if I
Mhm.
want to be the best me.
Right.
And then realizing that you only gonna get one shot at this life thing.
yeah,
Right.
So you gotta look at and assess the value of the beliefs and ways of being that you have in the world, and of seeing if the stuff that's been holding you
Right.
back is going to move you closer to some freedom to be the best
Right.
you, then give it your best shot, make your next
Right.
move your best move, because you really don't have anything to lose,
Right.
other than letting the silence torment you.
Right.
And one last thing I'll say on it, you mentioned the violence against Black males, against the Black community, even broader, comes with a set of trauma.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
hear the stories, and I don't watch the videos. I know what it's like. I lived in the projects. I did what I did when I was young. So I know what it's like to be, abused by the police. I know what it's like for them to roll up on the block and, act like they're not really the police. They acting like us. I've seen that violence. So in some ways, it just it re it brings the trauma of it back. It's not even just the anger. It's just, it's also the memories of years of being a teenager and the
Yeah.
hell we caught, right? So
Yeah.
now here I am, a grown man living a professional life, trying to live into what I believe I'm here to do, yet
Mhm.
still carrying some of the trauma of
Yeah.
the things I had to deal with in the hood when it comes to police,
Yeah.
and when I see police still, it is still to this day,
Yes.
I don't leave the house
Yes.
without a
Yeah.
driver's license.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Even if I'm just going to the store, I
Mhm.
keep some ID on me,
Mhm.
because I'm mindful of what could happen.
Yeah.
And there are people in the world who don't understand what that's like. So you have to deal with the impact of that and how
Mhm.
it's impacting who you desire to really become in the world. So you have
Right.
the justice part of it socially, but then you have to give yourself the same justice that you believe others deserve. So how are
Right.
you going to liberate your own thinking while you're also seeking to liberate others?
Yeah.
Right. I like that.
And then when I mean
Broderick,
liberate your thinking, liberate
right.
liberate how you think about yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right. Broderick, that's both of you guys have just, I mean, just came out the gate swinging, man. This is such good stuff. Um, we have a question from a viewer. Latasha says, as a Black woman, what can I do to hold space for the Black men in my life, including earning trust to allow them to feel that they can be vulnerable with me? Broderick, can you tackle that? And then Ramal, add your thoughts as well.
So I think that it's two things. A part of creating safe space, I believe, for Black men in general, and this is a general statement that I'm making, is that being a listening ear, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes being a listening ear isn't necessarily looking for you to fix it, but can I literally undress, right? Can I literally
Mm,
take my Superman cape off? Can I literally take the S off of my chest and in
yeah.
a moment of vulnerability be able to give you what it is that I've been carrying or that I've been taught to carry? So I think that's the first thing. Creating trusted space, and a part of creating trusted space, just the practicality of it.
Mhm.
Having a listening ear. Listening is a form of intimacy. It's not always about the physical thing, but just being able to see me as human, being able to validate my humanity, and being able to yield strength in moments that I'm not able to be strong. I think that that's a key thing. As far as keeping the men accountable to that, what do I do? Including, yeah. Um, a part of holding them accountable is to also engaging in hard conversations. Don't permit us to hide, because a lot of brothers, well, I'll just say for me, and for
Mhm.
brothers that I'm committed to or connected to in community,
Mhm.
oftentimes we hide behind the facade of strength, or the facade of having it together. Because as Ramal shared, being from the hood or coming from environments that were prone to violence,
Mhm.
showing any type of emotion was seen as a sign of weakness. So
Wow.
yeah, can I trust you with my emotion, however it is that it come out?
Mhm.
Is this still trusted safe space? And even if you don't necessarily have the language to help me to navigate through, just the fact that you were here, it validates my humanity. Because oftentimes outside of our communities, outside of our homes, outside of those that we do have connections with, our humanity really isn't validated.
Wow.
It's a part of
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Right.
You want to hop in,
You
bro?
know, I'm sorry. I think that So there are layers to that answer, right?
Hmm.
Because when a woman is asking, how do I create safe space for a brother? One of the things that comes to mind is that every brother shows up in a relationship bringing a story about one, what it means to be a man, two, what it means to be in relationship with a woman, right?
Hmm.
Through the lens of his own family and life experiences, and not just his family, his
Hmm.
surroundings, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that brother may not know what safe space looks like for him.
Hmm.
And in terms of creating the space for him to be vulnerable, again, depending on how you grew up, that's not even on the table, being vulnerable, right? Because of
Okay.
the narrative I was raised in, did not teach me vulnerability. It told me, be tough, shut up, don't cry, be a man, be strong, carry it, right? So now you're asking me to be vulnerable. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I never
Mhm.
had to do that, especially in relationship. And then there's the narrative of I'm supposed to always be strong for my woman.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I even need as safe
Mhm.
space to really share how I feel. So those are some of the layers. Another part of it is actually sitting down and having a grown ass conversation.
Right.
Two adults in
Right.
relationship, really talking about how can I be present for you in moments of
Yeah.
weakness? Like, let's really
Yeah.
talk that through. Let's have
Yeah.
a real plan like adults, right? And so that we're really rolling as a team and we know how to be strong for each other. I'm strong when you're weak when I'm strong. And we also are willing to acknowledge that we need help at times.
Yeah.
That requires is we too often assume those things rather than actually have real conversations about here's how we're going to act in this relationship when it comes to
Mhm.
our emotional needs. Because
Right.
when you have the conversation, you can now be accountable for what you agree to in the conversation.
Right.
So it's and asking how can I create that safe space? It begins with asking that brother, what does safe space look like for you in a moment
Right.
of vulnerability?
Mhm.
And
Right.
being okay if he says, I don't know. And
Okay.
and then the brother being willing to say, I
Being
really need to think that through because one,
Right.
it's never been there for me. Growing up for me, I didn't have no safe space to be vulnerable. I could be angry, I could be sad, but I couldn't cry.
Wow.
I could be angry, but not too angry because you might get knocked out. You get too angry, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I couldn't be too happy because too happy was soft.
Right.
So
Wow.
I had to navigate these paradigms to
Mhm.
as a child that you then carry into adult life, and not realizing that you're living this past-driven present,
Right.
and the people who raised you are still orchestrating your life because you
Right.
haven't found the essence of who you really are. So
Right.
there are layers to getting to what safe space
Mhm.
looks like for someone.
Right. Right. And I think both of you guys, Broderick, did you want to tag on to that?
to tag on to what Ramal shared. Uh,
Hmm.
Also, too, in order for a sister to provide safe space for a brother, is that she too have to be able to identify what safe space is for her.
That's good.
But as oftentimes as brothers
Yeah,
don't necessarily know what safe space is, it's the same for the sisters as well.
Yeah.
What you do with those sisters do, that might not necessarily work for
Yeah.
us. But as well, what does that look like for you? If the burden of providing that space or creating that space is being placed on you, what does that look like for you? Because again, our blackness, black experience is not monolithic. So yeah, that whole conversation is intimacy. It opens up the
Yeah.
door for us to reveal
yeah,
ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Let me tie up. Let
that
me
is a
kind of
very
tie
good
up.
point.
Oh, I wanted to kind of tie up what you guys are saying because we have some more questions coming in. I know we could like literally chop this up, chop this up all day, but it sounds like you guys are kind of saying the same thing for the most part, but adding the layers with both people knowing number one what a safe space is, number two identifying if they know what vulnerability is and what it looks like. And then number three, as Ramal said, having a grown conversation a grown behind conversation um, about what that looks like on both ends. Was that pretty
Yeah.
much it?
Yeah, and yes, that was pretty much it.
Well, there's a part two to that question. Um, Annika says, how do you work through that without creating feelings that are mistaken as romantic affections when you were just being a friend? So I'm guessing that she's asking if we being vulnerable and talking about safe spaces, you're gonna be my man, right? Like you about to be my boo?
Yeah.
Not
Or you
Well,
have to be my
again,
boo?
that,
Are you about to be my
but
man of
see,
God? That's what I need to know.
but
That's what I
see,
need to know.
again, that's it. That's why people got to have real conversations about their expectations and
Right.
what this relationship is and what it is not. Because, if you live into an assumption that another person is unaware of and they
Mm-hmm.
don't live into your unspoken expectation, there's nothing really to be angry about. So,
Mm-hmm.
but if you were just trying to be present for a brother and like, look, I want to, as a really good friend, create space
Mm-hmm.
so that you can come to me, but as a friend and keep
Mm-hmm.
that out there and then if you're going to say it's friendship, have friend boundaries,
right.
right?
Right.
So make sure both people are clear on what it is and what it isn't, and those boundaries are not conflicted either.
Right.
um, but I think again, here's something I found in many conversations with sisters about brothers who, in the beginning, they're telling you their story and how hard it was,
Oh,
right?
we
And
fall for
then,
that every time. Like that just if
well,
listen, because if you
right,
if
but
you
see,
open it up to me, that means you got to what's
well,
up?
the assumption is, oh, he's vulnerable, when actually he's only telling you where all of his wounds are,
Purpose.
Ooh, wait
because
a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So because if the story of my trauma doesn't end with good news, I'm still stuck in the story of my
Ooh,
trauma.
Yes, sir.
So if I tell you, how hard it was between me and my mother, and it doesn't, but we got better and we did this work and the relationship changed. If
wow.
it never gets to the good news side, he's not just being vulnerable. He's telling you where the wounds are. So you
Wow.
have to listen through the lens of, oh my God, he's sharing so much and he's so open. Did it become good news though? Because if it
Wow.
just you got stuck in the wound narrative, he's still in it, and
Wow.
that's an invitation into the wound.
Yeah.
And then we
Wow.
become, we start trying to be somebody else's superhero when we didn't create the wound and it's not our responsibility to fix it. We can walk
Wow.
along somebody else and healing their story, but it's their responsibility to hear their story. So we have to really listen intently, when
Yeah.
we think someone's being vulnerable and letting us in for
Yeah.
where that story is really going.
Yeah.
You're right. Let me add, I want to add something to that for the sisters in there. Broderick, I got you. Sisters, we have to be careful as well. Now I know I'm up here laughing and I'm cutting up, but listen, your girl has definitely been through a thing or two. And I think that when as empathic people, just in general, but especially us women, because a lot of times we feel very deeply, especially if you start talking to us about how you've been hurting and what your last girl, what your ex person did and what your mama did and your daddy did and all of that stuff, we automatically have a safe, a soft spot. And that's so I'm so glad that you guys are breaking that down for us because so many times it does translate into, oh, now we have this connection. He feels vulnerable enough to share this with me. Now and then we put on the superwoman syndrome because now we want to be your savior, right? Every other woman in your life hurt you, but I don't want to be that woman that did that. And so I'm glad that y'all are touching on that because we really have to start as sisters again who want to hold space, who want to give that vulnerability, but we also need to make sure that it's safe as well. So thank you for touching on that because that was needed, man. Roger, what's going on? What you thinking?
Just thinking through that whole savior complex piece, oftentimes individuals who do exhibit a savior complex are attempting to be for others what somebody failed to be for them. So
Mm,
it's the sharing. of trauma. So a lot of relationships that we are deeming to be intimate and romantic and I'm head over heels and this is the best thing ever since sliced bread. No, this is just somebody vibrating on the same level of trauma that you were vibrating on
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
far greater. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
just the point of connectivity, just ensuring that we are not necessarily connecting on the premise of trauma because my
Yeah.
trauma is so trauma, eventually somebody will end up hurting somebody in the process and we'll end up having compacted, compounded trauma as well. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Whew. Okay, let me get back to my questions because I just feel like, oh man, these are some awesome questions, y'all. Like these are really good. Okay, let me see. Let me look at my list of questions. Oh, how is mental illness addressed in the church? I saw
Well,
Broderick's eyes get big, but I mean,
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
So first, what are we defining as the church, right? Because the church isn't a four-wall edifice.
okay.
Church is a body of believers. Like right now,
Hmm.
having church, we
Yeah.
prescribe to a Christian theology.
Hmm.
We are the church, and anytime
Hmm.
we sit down together to have conversation, it is us
Right.
actually not forsaking the assembly of the Lord. We are literally assembling right now. Um,
Right.
we're walking away with some type of healing or some type of clarity that the deity has placed on the inside of us. So,
Yeah.
but if I went along the track of mind that most people do have when they hear church, it's limited to a four wall building, something
Hmm.
that's rooted within a denomination, something that is rooted in a reformation that is led. Um,
Right.
ugh, Oftentimes, it's a patriarchal situation that's happening, right? So, if
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about church from that premise and that perspective, again, I try not to do the whole general thing, but
Okay.
from a black church lens.
Yes. Okay. Let's go there because when we think about church as a whole, especially as African Americans, um, we have seen,
Absolutely.
across the board. Now it is being talked about more. But how are we addressing it when our men come into the church? Are
It's,
we doing what we need to do other than
Well,
than
it's I think
preaching
so
from the pulpit?
so I think that I don't think
we got a Teddy Riley.
We got a Teddy Riley. Hold
that
on.
the
We got a Teddy Riley.
starting about church. I'm frozen. Am I
You
frozen?
were frozen. You let it
Okay.
go, let it go. You were frozen.
So listen, I think that it also begins with having an honest conversation about church, and that churches can also be a source of trauma.
Mama, yeah.
Um, so to talk about the role of the church, we have to again, it's a holistic conversation. What role has a church played in creating trauma?
Woo-wee.
Being responsible for the trauma that some people have, and then asking the church to be the source of the healing of the trauma that it caused
It's
is
not
an unrealistic expectation.
gonna work.
So I think it's not just the church talking about therapy and having therapists available. It's when I walk into this church, do I feel like it's the most superficial place I've walked into today? Do I feel
Yeah.
like everybody in here is pretending? Is
Hmm.
this a place where we cloak everything in spirituality? So rather
Yeah.
than confront your pain and deal with your wounds, you're
Hmm.
going to sprinkle a little Jesus on it and think that that's
Hmm.
just going to make it better all by itself,
Right.
rather than holding yourself accountable and doing the work that you need to do. So as the brother said, you can have faith, you can have prayer, and you can have a therapist. But at the end of the day, you also just got to be honest,
You gotta be honest.
right?
Right.
So,
Right.
how do we create honest spaces for healing?
Yes.
And also realize that it doesn't serve people well when they hide behind the Bible and not deal with their wounds. And the Bible can be a part of your healing process.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Or
oppression.
What happened
yeah.
or what now?
Just as much as the Bible can be a part of your healing, it can also be a part of your oppression. as well.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
because some churches weaponize the Bible,
yes,
Yeah.
and and they use to put you in your place. So again, it's not in simple question. There are churches that are healthy and great spiritual places and places of healing, both spiritually, emotionally, and otherwise. But
Yeah.
it's not that simple. We're talking about an institution that's full of imperfect people, and what we're trying to do is walk along each other on a journey of perfecting who we're becoming.
Right.
So it's not a I don't think there's one answer to the role of the church.
it's
We
not.
know, we know all of the stuff around how, the people who just pray about it, right? I
Mhm.
believe in the power of prayer. I've seen the power of prayer. Um, it's that, and
Yeah.
sometimes you might want to pray for God to show you the right therapist, right? Pray that when you sit down with the therapist, you're going to be honest with the therapist,
Well,
right?
but
Wait,
Give me
hold
the
on, hold on,
courage
hold
to
on.
be honest.
Wait. Let's unpack that. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
sometimes even before we're able, what happens when your trauma strips you of your voice and you don't have anything to say? What happens when you find yourself like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, where you're praying and you're crying out, and God has literally left you on pause, left you on mute, left you in a moment of silence? Like oftentimes when we think about religiosity and we think about Christianity, um, we set people in this high loftiness of
Yeah.
heaven is here, heaven is now, heaven is coming in the by and by. And when life starts happening to people, it doesn't match with the theology, and now
Yeah.
spiraling, right? So I
Yeah.
think that one of the greatest tragedies that the church does to the human is that we whitewash or we sterilize people's humanity, right? Um,
Mm.
Teaching individuals that the healing that you stand in need of is actually on the inside of you. My God,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? So the brother that was at the pool of Bethesda, this man had been on a rut literally for 30 plus years of his life,
Yeah.
saying, every time I want to get in the water, somebody will get in the water before me. Jesus shows up and it's like, will you be made whole? What
Right.
will you be made whole? Jesus didn't
Right.
allow the man to say yes or no. Jesus just literally said, take up your bed and walk. What
Right.
of the story? The healing that the man stood in need of was already on the inside of him. He
Right.
needed somebody to help him to realize the answer is in you. And I think that oftentimes the church systems, and this is coming from somebody that's a pastor, oftentimes
Oh, that was the pastor that just rose up in you just then. That thing bubbled on.
oftentimes we don't teach people how to become self-sufficient. We
Yeah.
in molds and cycles of depending
Yeah.
on God
Yeah.
to come back to us to get the waters of refreshing that their souls need, and that's erroneous. What happens when there's a divine pause? What happens when your humanity just needs space to be? What happens
Yeah.
when, even as a faith-based practitioner, I have no words. All I have is divine presence. Just show up and be.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the act and in the heart of just showing up and creating healthy community, people actually talk themselves into the healing that they need. That's what
Absolutely.
he said.
Absolutely.
Therapist asks God
Yeah,
questions and we
Yes.
talk ourselves into the healing that we need.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you bring faith into the conversation, one of the things I've learned in my own healing journey was
Hmm.
that, you have these. I showed up with these expectations of God,
yeah,
right? And
Yeah.
you study the scriptures and you listen to preachers and you go to
Hmm.
classes and you are convinced that there is a life for me that God has.
Hmm.
But then I began to realize that I'm keeping myself from that life because the story that God has for me is true, but there's a narrative and a story that I've been living into that contradicts what God has for me. So in other
Wow.
words, if God says I have a plan for you, but my narrative about myself is that I'm not good enough and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not worthy and I'm
Hmm.
undeserving because of how I grew up and the trauma
Hmm.
of my childhood, I now have to deal with my wounds and so
Hmm.
that I can heal and live
Hmm.
into what God says is for me. So
Right.
the challenge is sometimes we live these contradicting narratives. We want what God has, but we don't want to do the work on ourselves to get it. So
Right.
if this is what God has for me, what do I need to let go of in order to receive what God has for me? If
Right.
what beliefs and what ways of thinking about myself that are actually a
Mm,
barrier to living the life that I want? How can I
right.
want a better life when I'm constantly telling myself I'm not smart enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not good enough? But yet you have this positive expectation while you're speaking negativity to yourself.
Right.
So maybe a therapist can help you get to the root of why do you have these negative assumptions about you? Who told you
Right.
those things? And
Right.
why have you accepted them as true? And
Right.
what value and what how does it serve you well to believe you're not enough and
Yes.
still want abundance from God? Like
Mm,
it's a contradiction.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to do the inner work of dealing with overcoming these life limiting beliefs to really
Right.
have the life and do the things that you're really here to do. And
Right.
the church has a role in that. But at the end of the day, we have a responsibility in it as well.
Right. Right. And I have to add that also, and these are some very, I mean, this feedback is just wow. Wow. And the comments, the questions, thank you all for tuning in and for adding the I mean, y'all have a whole amen corner over here. I'm trying to put the comments on the screen. Um, but as from the therapeutic side, one of the things that we well, I'm speaking as a social worker. One of the things that we cannot do, even if we practice a specific type of faith, is that we can't show up to the session in our faith. We show up, as far as faith goes, as a blank canvas until you verbalize, hey, I'm a Christian, or I'm Buddhist, or I'm Muslim, or whatever your faith is. If you verbalize that and say, hey, do you practice this? Or, I would like advice from this particular perspective. And hopefully, if you're looking for a therapist that comes from a particular background, a particular faith background, then you kind of search for that type of therapist before you go in, just so that that understanding is there. But from a therapeutic side, if you're seeing a therapist and you say, well, I really want counseling that's based on faith, or I want to address trauma in the church, have that conversation with your therapist. Don't assume that just because they're not talking in therapy about what they believe and prayer and all of that, don't assume that they don't have a specific faith, because again, ethically speaking, we don't show up as, hey, well, this is what I believe, you either get with it or not. We want to be able to create a safe space for you and allow you to invite that conversation in. And literally, I always say, we're in the passenger seat, you're the driver's seat. You're inviting us into the car of your journey. You're inviting us to take this ride with you. We're not in the driver's seat, we're in the passenger seat, but you have to invite us in, and you have to give us that space to do so. So I'm trying to get these comments up on the screen as much as I can, as quick as I can. Heal your wounds and live into what God has for you. Brian says, much needed conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Sharita says, preach. That's all she got. She was probably throwing her napkin at the screen. Sharita also said, faith without realistic expectations from man will hurt you to the core. Also yes, absolutely, share your faith with your therapist or a counselor. Invite the conversation in. And again, ethically speaking, if it's something that they can't particularly speak to, then they won't be in there making stuff up either. So just want to throw that out there. Don't be making stuff up. So let's go to the next. That was a loaded question.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
let's see. What are some of the, when we talk about belief systems that men often, our African American men often grow up with, that are self-defeating thoughts? Both of you have touched on the topic of, how is your thought process? How is your identity? How is this serving you? How do we, what are, if you can just throw some out there, and just, if we're just, imagine that we're sticking stuff on the wall. If you can just throw out some mindsets, what would some of them be?
I mean, and again, it depends on the circles, right? Um, but some of the things men will say, it's soft to cry, it's
Mm,
weak or soft to, talk about, you're sad, you don't being sad and telling brothers, man, this is a hard day and I'm just feeling down, that's
mhm,
deemed as soft, right? A real man doesn't cry, a real man is tough, and again, it's like, who created all of these
Who created?
defining characteristics that
yes.
I'm expected to live into, that haven't served these brothers well in the first place, not only in their personal lives, but even in relationships.
Yeah.
Mm,
But it's not just what men say, because there have been sisters in my life and in my
mhm,
upbringing that perpetuated, toxic ways of being and what a man was supposed to be and what a man was supposed to do.
mm,
And some of the
mm,
very things that the sisters I grew up with were saying a man was supposed to do wasn't serving them well in the relationships they were in with those kind of men. So it's kind of like, why do we keep perpetuating these systems and assumptions that are not helpful?
yeah.
And it's because it's supposed to create a public perception, even
Yeah.
though that public perception leads to internal poison.
Wow.
So the reality is,
Mhm,
there are numerous negative things that don't serve us well around,
mhm,
what men think,
mhm,
what is a strong man and a soft man and a,
mhm.
what's weak. At the end of the day, you really just got to start assessing what's the value of this belief,
Yeah.
and is it serving anyone well? Because how do a brother like me, I'm raised by a woman who's like, get up, be strong, don't cry,
Mhm.
and then I grow up, and a woman's like, so how do you feel? I'm like, man, my own mama didn't give me the right to feel,
Yeah.
so I
Right.
don't even know how to answer the question,
Wow.
right? But we raise young men through these ideas of manhood, and sometimes because as a black man in certain contexts, it's dangerous
Yeah.
to cry and express emotions because you'll get
Wow.
played in these streets. So how do you navigate, as you're becoming a holistic man, how to be strong and be a warrior in certain contexts where how to not only defend yourself but to keep
Mhm.
yourself from being attacked, and
Yeah.
then navigate the boardroom and the classroom, and then come home
Yeah.
and take off all the armor to be fully present to your woman, realizing
Right.
she doesn't need you to be a warrior in the house and be strong and be quiet and mean mugging her, like, but you're not taught we're not oftentimes taught how to um, manage our emotions and contextualize our ways of being, in ways that are healthy for ourselves and for others,
Wow.
because we live in these rigid assumptions about what we're supposed to be
Right.
until you finally get to the point where you're man enough to decide, I'm going to be my own man and create my own definitions for the life that
Yeah.
I believe I'm supposed to have. And whoever don't
Right.
like it can kick rocks with an open toe shoe on. I don't care.
Right. Right. That's good stuff.
Um,
Roger, can you add to that? And also, Annika says, what about rites of passage? Is there any value in that? Can you tackle that as well?
yes. Just to add on to what Ramal has already shared, men don't smile. It's interesting now to see young men that I mentor. I have an opportunity to be a part of their lives, just getting some of their school pictures. They're all
Hmm.
smile, and it's like, wait, what is that? Um,
Hmm.
having to be overly hard or super macho is the ideal choice of who you are as a man when men can be nurturing. Um, and can be lovers, and you don't have to be this hard, visceral, unapproachable individual. But in being unapproachable, in being stern, in being stone faced, is a tool of preservation. It helps
Hmm.
you navigate through your community
Hmm.
you're in on a consistent basis. And sometimes it's not the outside community, it's actually inside your home. So if
Wow.
you have an abusive parent off of you, you have to not show any form of emotion, any form of expression. So I think that there are a number of things that are there, but that's definitely one of them. Another thing that was also taught too that I learned within my community: black men don't go to the doctor. Going to the doctor, what is
I
it?
mean, for nothing.
You ain't going to the doctor. Take some BC powder with a RC coat.
And
You,
drink some ginger ale.
you'll be all right. So
Right.
even the act of self care,
Right.
ownership of my own health, that was also something that I did not see exhibited at all until 2008 when my
Mm.
stepfather, the man who actually raised me, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and he died. Like, did not go to doctors at all. Like that wasn't a thing until bam, you end up with something and your life is about to be stripped away, right? But to answer the question that Ms. Omika posted about rites of passage, I absolutely believe in the power of rites of passage. I am an alumnus of Morehouse College, and coming into Morehouse, there was a form of rites of passage that all entering freshmen go through called NSO. It is a moment where we are taken through an entire journey of the African diaspora, of what does it mean to be a man, not only from the continent, but also within the US.
Mhm.
Powerful moment, but to also be surrounded by what would be deemed to be successful Black men, to see
Mhm.
we have the potential to be. Oftentimes, we perpetuate systems and cycles of toxicity because we haven't been exposed to a better way. So if I haven't been exposed to a better way, and if I don't know
Mhm.
a better way, I don't even know how to pursue something that's far greater than what I've been in. So for me, what I understand rites of passage to do, it helps you to understand your past so that you can understand your present, but it also surrounds you with individuals who are a reflection of what you have the potential to be in the future. So I'm so down for rites of passage programs. It's just unfortunate that a lot of us are few and far in between, especially when it comes to our communities, because we demonize things that may be Afrocentric in nature because of how we've been taught, or it's just a matter of individuals feel as if that what they have, people won't necessarily buy into it. So yeah.
Good stuff. Man, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. We listen, I'm with the Saints on this. We definitely have to have a part two because this is such a loaded topic. And I'm sure that we could like go on and on and on and on about all of these, but both of you guys have really shared some great insights and really tackled that mindset that you're weak or you're soft if you're a man and you show any emotion, or to even admit that you're struggling or that you need help. Let's bring it down, and we have just a few moments left. Let's bring it down to the age of the Rona, the middle of March. Our lives literally, I say that our lives were turned upside down, literally in a matter of probably 3 days. It was like the Rona is here. Oh shoot, don't go nowhere after 9 o'clock. To oh shoot, don't go nowhere at all. To wipe down everything. To you don't have a job anymore. And so
Yeah.
and I can imagine for men, especially if you are a provider in your home, and now you're being told that you don't have a job, or you may not have anything to come back to. Talk to me about, or even if it's not about the job, tell me, from a man's perspective, how are you coping with everything that's happening just with this whole COVID-19 um, situation? I know that in the mental health world, amongst clinicians, we're talking a lot about the fallout from this. um, as much as we're working to try to address the trauma of it, and even secondary traumas of everything we're seeing and hearing and reading, um, the way that we're processing this right now, I believe, is going to have impact that is going to last beyond the actual sickness, right? So even after there's a medicine for it, or there's a vaccine or what have you, vaccine people do not come for me on this post. I'm kidding. But even beyond that, right? Like, there are going to be long lasting effects. And because we're still in it, I do believe that right now it's making it hard for us to step out of it and deal. Right now, we're just trying to deal on the day-to-day basis. But once this is
Yeah.
over, we're going to have to, I think we're going to look back and have to assess what we lost, what we learned, what we gained, all of the above. And so talk to me about how you're doing and what you're seeing with everything that is
Yeah.
happening.
Sure. I know, with my, again, it's contextualized.
Mhm,
With my friends, we were having healthy conversations, checking on each other before coronavirus.
mhm,
But I've noticed that with other friends that I was not as close with,
mhm,
our conversations are more, real life. How are you doing? How's the family? How was today? Because it's literally day by day,
mhm,
in terms of, navigating the feelings around it. Um, but the conversations are not as superficial as they used to be. No sports are on,
mhm.
so you can't call anybody asking about the game. So if we're going to be in relationship, we can't just talk about play dates.
Yeah.
What's the grown man play date today? There are no more play dates. So, ain't no, we ain't going out for cigars and we ain't watching the game and there are no parties, right? And that's assuming you're actually living, you're trying to live and be healthy. So brothers who are in healthy friendships are checking on each other and the conversations are more, they have more value. But then, when I do go to the store and I see brothers who no masks, no gloves, and I I'm feeling frustrated because I'm trying to be concerned about people who don't appear to be concerned about themselves.
Yeah.
But then I thought about my own journey. There was a time in my life when I lived reckless, right?
Mm.
You young and you do reckless things and you live reckless. And the reality is if people were reckless with their lives before coronavirus, they still reckless in the midst of coronavirus, right? It
But
didn't change who you were. It just exposed some other aspects of who you are. You reckless. You out here, no gloves, no mask. You telling me you're a reckless individual and you don't care about other people.
right.
So you didn't care about other people pre-coronavirus.
Wow.
So it's showing us who we are and
Yeah.
who we're willing to become, how much we value our own lives and what we're willing to do to be here,
Yeah.
and what risk we're willing to take with our own lives and with the lives of others.
Right.
So it's not only just observing, the conversations between, one brother to another. I think
Mhm.
those are healthier depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You look at this past weekend, you had people out here kicking it like COVID was over.
It was
At
left
the beach, at
But
the pool,
barbecuing. All
look,
barbecue.
listen, they were reckless pre-COVID. So it didn't change the value you put on your life.
yeah.
It made you live into the value you have for your life
Ooh.
and the value
Wait,
you
wait,
have for
wait,
other people's lives.
wait a
So,
minute. Say that again.
yeah, it didn't change the value you have for your life. It exposed it. And so it didn't create new value. You're showing yourself how much you care about you right now.
Yes, sir.
And you're showing everybody else how much you care about them. But here's the last thing I'll say on this. We live
Wow.
in America. We are now expecting everyone in America to care about other people. That is not the story of America.
Right.
Wow.
You could not create America if you cared about everybody.
Yes,
You would
sir.
not have killed 90% of the indigenous people if everybody mattered and you cared about everybody. There wouldn't have been over 70 million Africans murdered if you cared about everybody. America was never created under the lens of we care about everybody. It was created for wealth and capitalism at the expense of the people we don't care about. So when you're telling folks, put on a mask and gloves and think about others, you're damn near asking them not to be American because this country was never rooted in caring about the needs of everybody. It
Right.
was built on caring about the needs of some at the expense of others.
Yeah.
So we have to be mindful as African Americans in this country. We know how to love people and love ourselves and treat
Yeah.
other people like we love them. We have to remember the story of our strength and our
Yeah.
resilience and
Yeah.
our innovation, and then use that to care for ourselves and for the people we care about. But
Right.
don't walk out your house thinking that everybody else is going to care. That's not the story of the country we live in. It
Wow.
wasn't built on everybody here is always care about everybody else. It was built on we care about ours at the expense of yours. And
Right.
so when we can't be shocked at people being angry about why can't I go outside and do what I want to do. That's the story of America right there. I came here to get money at somebody else's expense. That's how the story started.
Yeah.
And we have been fighting as a people to change that narrative.
Wow.
And so that we are not just included in a story of make money and not care, but to change the whole narrative where you actually show some love and compassion for yourself, and
Right.
then you're able to show up for other people.
Wow. That was loaded. That was loaded. That was good. I feel like we need a moment to kind of process that. Look, is that the proverbial mic drop? That was some really, really, really good insight, Ramal. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, I'm gonna have to replay this whole thing, but yeah, that gave some perspective on why certain things are still going on, and I just got tired of fussing at the people. I was like, I'm not gonna post any more statuses about y'all out here living reckless. Don't post your GoFundMe account. I'm not gonna do that no more. Like I'm not doing that no more. I'm just gonna let people just live their life. So, but yes, but absolutely, I'm kidding. But on a more serious note, absolutely, we have to get back to showing more care and concern and remembering that it is an individual responsibility, and it goes back to our own mental and emotional wellness, because when we hold that space of caring for ourselves, it makes it easier for us to hold that kind of space for other people. But if we don't even regard our own life as important, or who we are as important, then it's almost impossible for us to see that value in other people. It's just not there. It's just not there. Broderick, did you want to add something to that?
I mean, no, brother Ramal, he summed that thing up. To answer your question though, even from the perspective of my own community, uh,
Yeah.
when COVID started popping off, my mom is a nurse, she's a frontliner in essential worker. She ended up contracting
Mm,
COVID while trying to
yeah.
help other patients. Um,
Yeah.
my community, the people that I surround myself with, they literally came to the hub and was like, we don't need Pastor Broderick. We need Broderick.
Yeah.
Broderick, how are you? What can we do for you?
Yeah.
So for me, it's very reminiscent of the stories that I would hear my grandparents tell about what the Black community looked like during the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, where
Yeah.
people had all things in common with each other. I got an opportunity to experience that within my community. One week it was my mom having COVID. The next week, one of my brothers ended up losing his job. And being able to come into the community and say, listen, my job they laid me off, they told me that I'll be able to come back when this thing lifts, but there's
Yeah.
no guarantee, how long I'll be out of work and still be able to call and check in and be like, hey, I'm gonna call your wife. Sis, how is it going? Is he getting quiet? What's going on with him? And being able to engage in hard conversations with them and just allowing people space to just be, to say,
Yeah.
I feel like God forsook me. Or, yeah, I mean, God is all that I got, but right now I'm side on him like, hey, God, what's going on?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, for me, the pandemic has opened up even the more amongst my community this whole dynamic of listen, we are stronger together than one individual. If I got some bleach, you got some bleach. If you got some hand sanitizer, I got some hand sanitizer. You got some toilet paper, you got some toilet paper.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it's done for me, and I've been grateful for it just for this
Yeah.
downtime. And even the downtime opens up the door to even practice self care.
Yeah.
Was being silent and stillness as threatening. When
Yeah.
oftentimes silence and stillness is the room where your soul is able to process.
Yes.
So yeah, even being able to navigate through the stillness that's being presented. Like that's
Yeah.
been interesting. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think we have more downtime now than we've had. For some of us, we never really have downtime. There's a meme that goes around that says busyness is a trauma-based response because it keeps you from actually being still long enough to think.
mm,
And I think that that is so true. We actually become afraid of being still. You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny because even when I'm having therapy sessions, one of the things that I find that people are not comfortable with is silence. Like if they say something to me and I'm silent even for 3 seconds, and it's like, well, why are you quiet? I was only quiet for 3 seconds, but it's silent that sometimes people are uncomfortable with. And I found myself on the other side of that, being uncomfortable with silence, because when we're silent, it gives us time to think about what we just thought about. It gives us time to think about what we just said. You get what I'm saying? And so sometimes we have to allow that space for that silence and that stillness so that we can actually see what's going on. You know, if we're not going to work or school or what have you, we have time, fam. You know, and one of the things again that I've said on various lives or what have you that I've been fortunate to be a part of, talking about this space is, we're talking about this subject is right now is a good time, like you said, Broderick, self-care, start journaling,
yeah,
you know, call people and have conversations that you've been having this bitterness or this unforgiveness over, and all it takes is a conversation. We have time, fam. We have time to talk now. You know what I'm saying? If you have, if you're working and you have an EAP, or even if you're able to pay out of pocket or you have an insurance plan, call a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Because now we have much more time to actually think about the stuff or the areas that we're struggling with. And so it's not a bad thing. We just have to utilize the time as efficiently as we can. Absolutely. So, whew, this has been absolutely wonderful.
yeah,
Absolutely wonderful. I thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. Um, I'm sure that, there are people who are going to catch the replay as well. It's going to stay up on my page, my YouTube page, all of the above. We'll definitely be circling back. So the good part, the even better part, because this whole thing has been good, is what are some tools or resources that you can recommend for maybe the man who said, listen, I've heard everything that you have said. I am in total agreement with it. And I am ready to move forward with my healing. I'm ready to take the next step. I'm ready to talk to someone about what I've been struggling with that is causing issues at my job or in my marriage or with my kids or in my friendships or what have you. What are some recommendations that you have, um, and how can they access those resources? So whoever wants to go first, you certainly can.
yeah. For me, the resources that I consistently redirect people to is Psychology Today. It has a phenomenal tool
Mhm.
on the left tab where you're able to find the therapist. If you have access to healthcare coverage, you can enter in the type of coverage that you have, the city, state, and county that you're in, and what type of therapist you're interested in, whether if it's an African American male who's Muslim, African American female who's Christian, whatever it is, you're able to enter it in, and literally it will populate up for you the
Mhm.
therapies that are within the county, within the city, within the state. It goes as far as like a 30-mile radius to tell you, what type of resources that are there. So that's one. It's absolutely free.
Yeah.
psychologytoday.com. The second resource that I would tell any man to get is, brother, get you a journal. Get your journal. Um,
Yes.
I not necessarily have an opportunity to sit down with the therapist, or a thought may come up. Some of your trauma may come up. You have an opportunity to sit down, write, be raw, uncut, unjudged within a journal. And I'm an avid reader. I am currently reading Cry Like a Man. Cry Like a Man by Joshua Wilson, Jason Wilson. Awesome read. You may have seen him on social media. He's the older black guy that is teaching young black men karate and helping them to work through their emotions that may spring up while they're out on the mat. And then another book that I just recently got introduced to is When Sorry Isn't Enough. It's talking about your forgiveness language. So the writer Gary Chapman, he has a book called The Five Love Languages, where
Mm.
he explores the way that we express love, how we receive love. But him and his wife, they just recently wrote another book talking about the way that we express forgiveness, but we also receive forgiveness as well.
Wow.
It's one of the beginning tools that I give a lot of individuals that I have an opportunity to do some inner healing work with. Um, yeah, so those are the four that I have. And then two, of course, community. Giving you some real good community that's going to put your feet to the fire to help you have some grown ass conversation. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Basically, yes. All of that. Thank you. You better come on and bring your stack of books to the live.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you, Broderick. If you're able to put those in the names of those books again in the comments,
Okay.
that would be great.
Gotcha.
Ramal.
Yeah. I was thinking this through. One, if you're willing to see someone and you want to take that first step, you could also check out blackmentalwellness.com.
Mm,
Blackmentalwellness.com. They have a list of resources and tools there that are culturally relevant to, research therapists. Look for a therapist. It's almost like speed dating. Meet with different therapists. Don't commit. See if they're a match for your personality. That's one
mhm.
thing I had to do. And then be honest, like, I'm willing to go, but am I willing to tell the truth when I get there? Right.
Yeah.
That's key.
Because I found, like, if I could Jedi mind trick the therapist, I could sit there and lie all day and be spending my money, and it wasn't helpful to anybody.
Right.
Right.
You could have
So
gone to
it's not
brunch.
just right and spent, but are you willing to go? And if so, are you willing to tell the truth when you get
Yes,
there?
yes. That's good.
And are you working with a therapist yeah, and are you working with a therapist that's going to push you? Some people, I needed a very direct therapist. For
Yeah,
some other people, that doesn't work. You got to know your
yeah.
personality style. When it comes to reading, I think reading is also a good first step.
Hmm.
Watching videos and reading. This Claudia Black, I just pulled this book off myself. Changing Course was really good for me, by Claudia Black. I, I'm gonna mention Love is an Inside Job.
I was just about to
Uh,
say, I
with
mean,
that,
come on.
with that book,
Shameless plug.
Shameless
that's the
plug.
book I wrote about my own journey of healing trauma through faith and therapy.
Mhm.
Looking at both, telling some real hard stories about various aspects of trauma and the process of healing them, and realizing that childhood trauma was sabotaging my adult life, um,
Mm,
and in every way. Childhood beliefs around money and poverty were impacting my ability to generate wealth because of
yeah,
narrative around money that wasn't serving me well.
right.
Being surrounded by addiction actually influenced my self-worth. When you have a mom who chooses everything but you believe that no one's ever going to choose you first. Not
Wow.
realizing that that's a part of the trauma of addiction.
Wow.
When you're a kid,
Right.
and your parent is getting high, the thought is really, why is that more important than me? And
Right.
so it begins this narrative of I'm never enough. And then you
Right.
become an overachiever, not realizing you're also striving for attention, and then
Right.
self-sabotaging when people get too close. So the
Right.
story, the book gets into those narratives and the healing process. There's a workbook for it as well on my website, at
Mhm.
ramaltoon.com. If you go to ramaltoon.com and you put in your email address, you'll get the workbook free. There are also questions in the book. So, figure out which step is going to be right for you. Sometimes it's not as easy as jumping into therapy. I jumped in and out of therapy like it was double dutch for a minute,
Wow.
until I was ready. to really lean in.
Right.
So, reading books, checking out videos, journaling helps.
Mhm.
You got to have a journal that you can put in a safe space,
Right.
and then, learning who you can trust with your story.
Mhm.
And sometimes you find that the hard way because you think one minute you're talking to somebody who can handle your truth and they turn around and weaponize it against you.
Wow.
So you want to give people pieces of the story and see what they do with it, right? If they can handle it and walk with you on your journey as you're
Wow.
building that circle of
Right.
people who can be supportive for you, because it gets harder to tell your story and be in your own journey of healing if the person you're telling weaponizes what you tell them,
Yeah.
and then they
Wow.
use it. Well, that's why you this way, right? Now you tried it and you're gonna stop.
Yeah.
So be very cautious and identify people who have earned the right to your story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, and you can always tell if they've earned the right if you're always telling them your story and they also tell you theirs. When
Ooh.
you're the one doing all the talking about your stuff and they never want to tell you their stuff, that's a caution flag, right? Because
Wow.
they may very well see them as the person, they're here and you're here and they're here to
Wow.
you for you to tell them what you want them to know, but they don't have to tell
Wow.
you anything. So assess relationships with some wisdom,
Yeah.
and with some honesty to create your safe
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
and build your toolbox. There's no rush in this thing.
Yes.
God
Wow.
willing, it's a marathon and not a sprint. Be patient with yourself, offer yourself some grace while at the same time holding yourself accountable and on the journey.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good, 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 good stuff. Wow. All right, man. Listen, we could talk forever about this stuff because it's such a loaded subject. But I again thank you, Ramal and Broderick, for your wisdom tonight. Like I just know that this was impactful, and I know that there are many who are listening who needed this. They needed the permission to own their story and to be finally be honest about what they're dealing with. Broderick, Ramal, I put your website in the comments section. Broderick, I also wanted to put your website here as well so they can know where to get the black man and the black child shirts. Let's talk about that. So it's just Broderick McBride,
Yes.
right? .com. Okay.
Lastname.com.
And what does your shirt say? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yes. So my shirt says black man. And these are just defining factors to figure out which way I need to turn. Boom, there we go. Uh,
Good.
Number one, I believe that the black man is a melanated male born to be an ally to the black woman.
Mhm.
We're also called to be a safe space to other melanated men. And then finally, a mysterious soul that is meant to be handled with care. And if you go down further, see also prototype and home. So, um,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a thing that me and my girlfriend we were sitting down one night, and I said, "Babe, I have an idea." She was like, "Go with it, create it." And I
Yeah.
sat down and created it. And in creating it, I was thinking about the narratives of other black men. Um,
Yeah.
and then later on that night, one of my sisters reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need a shirt for your nephew." And I said, "Got it." And created a shirt for black boy. And the idea behind the black boy shirt is that oftentimes our sons are stripped of their childhood. When you hear about when something happens to them in media, they're called young men, they're selling or whatever. They're not necessarily permitted the opportunity to
Mhm.
children. So yeah,
Yeah.
a shirt of awareness.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I got to I was telling you I have to get some of those for the men in my family as well. And so fellas, this has been awesome. I won't hold you hostage any longer. So, are there any other parting words before we sign out? Thank you to everyone that has tuned in. Hit the replay. Applaud yourself for showing up for yourself, for being willing to at least tune in to have this as a starting place for conversation. Check out both of their websites. Follow them on, can they follow you on social media as well? If you want to plug a social media outlet in particular, go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
Oh, okay, so you can follow me on Instagram. It's my first name, Broderick.McBride. You can also find me on Facebook as well. First name, last name, Broderick McBride. And of course, my website, BroderickMcBride.com.
Yeah,
Cool.
same here. All of my social media is my name at Ramal Toon, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's all under ramaltoon.com.
Cool.
Uh, my website has several of my books, and my nonprofit is a Clear Story. So if you want to check out Clear Story, it provides some resources around mental health as well. That
Okay.
website is clearstoryworks.org, and that's CLERE works.org, clearstoryworks.org. So AB, thank you for doing this. I really hope it was, help somebody begin a conversation and,
Yes.
live a healthier journey and begin to ask themselves some real questions so that they
Yes.
can, become their best selves.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being a voice. Just thank you for all of the work that you're doing as an advocate, not just for men, but for our young boys as well. And most importantly, thank you for um, working your own process because we're all benefiting because you have been willing to work on yourself and you're committed to your own process and you're teaching us how to be committed to our process. So thank you for that as well. And thank you for tuning for being on here tonight and just sharing your wisdom, man. Like I appreciate it. I was like, I'm just gonna send him a message and just see if he'll do it. Cause Ramal is like he's like a slick superstar. And so I was just like, let me see if he have time for me. Cause I know he's used to these big stages and stuff. So let me just see if he'll have a little time, if he can pencil us in the schedule. So thank
Yeah.
you for being on. Broderick, did you want to add anything in closing at all?
No, just and thank you, B, for just creating this space for brothers to come together to have conversations. And Ramal, brother, man, thank you again for sharing your journey.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, for sharing your wisdom as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, both. Yeah.
Yes, thank you,
Appreciate
Broderick.
y'all.
I know that
Yeah,
I randomly hit you up like, so I may need to pull you in for something.
Yeah.
And your immediate response was, is that even a question? I'm there. And so again, you know that I have a very high level of regard and respect for you and what you are doing as well. And I'm just honored that you would take the time to be on here to take time out of your schedule to address this issue. And thank you for the work that you're doing. You know that I know firsthand the work that you're doing, even within the church, to make mental wellness and seeing a therapist a thing. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, guys, we are going to
all
tune
right.
out of here now. So take care, watch the replay, get these tools, and most importantly, get serious about your mental and emotional wellness because that's the best thing that you can do for yourself. Trust me, and it's the best thing that you can do for your family, for your community, and for the world that we live in because we need you. We honestly do. And so we are signing out. So have a good night.
All right.
All right. Good
All
night.
right.